On this episode of Mythbusters, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall,
How many of me can you stand?
Adam sheds some light on the tale of a 2,000-year-old death ray.
Oh, look at that!
A story you can't turn your nose up at. The Mythbusters get themselves skunked in the name of science.
I think it's working!
And Adam and Jamie have bulletproof materials in their sights. Who are the Mythbusters?
Am I missing an eyebrow?
Adam Savage.
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
And Jamie Heineman.
Quack, damn you.
I wouldn't say Jamie's an evil genius.
Between them, more than 30 years special effects experience.
When will the fun ever stop?
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test. First up, a myth from the mists of antiquity.
This time we have what I believe is the oldest myth that Mythbusters has tested. It comes from the 3rd century BC, right from the mind of the famous scientist Archimedes. And the idea is that Archimedes apparently utilized the sun's energy and mirrors to set fire to enemy ships during the Punic Wars.
Making a solar-powered weapon? Sounds right up the Mythbusters alley.
Well, haven't people speculated that he got his warriors to use their shields to create the mirror?
Absolutely, that's one of the main theories, and it is the very first theory that we're going to test, and that is ancient bronze shields.
The plan: use sheets of bronze to focus the sun's rays on a Roman warship and see if they can set it on fire. Anyone spot the wrinkle in the plan? Roman warships, or triremes as they were known, no longer exist outside of Hollywood.
What is the actual thickness we're looking for? What's the thickness of a Roman trimarine?
Adam gives the build team its biggest challenge. Try and construct part of a trireme using only materials available to the Romans in 215 BC.
The key factor here is actually the density of the wood, its flammability. You know, we want to be able to make this death ray have a certain temperature. We want that temperature to be a temperature that would have set fire to this kind of boat.
While Tori and Carrie are left to grapple with that little problem, folklorist Heather Joseph Witham has been brushing up on her ancient history.
Archimedes was definitely a real person, and his many inventions and discoveries were documented by historians of his time period. However, the ancient death ray wasn't written about until 800 years after it was supposed to have occurred by Anthemius. Therefore, this story has been debated ever since.
Adam and Jamie have found some bronze.
What do you think? Think I can set fire to a boat with this?
Well, if we get enough of them, yeah. It's pretty bright. I can feel the heat on my face from it. Ow, hurts my eyes. You like doing this, don't you?
I'm really enjoying it.
Unfortunately, the price tag's even more dazzling, so Adam might have to rethink the plan.
So, Tori, this is actual bronze. This is the most ancient material we're testing, and Archimedes definitely would have had access to this.
He decides to test a range of materials to see how they reflect both visible light and heat.
How many of me can you stand?
Armed with a light meter and a laser thermometer, the guys turn the spotlight on bronze, a bronze-colored plastic called mylar, aluminum, and an ordinary household mirror.
So it's reading 111. It's reflecting twice as much visible light, but like 30% less infrared. Right. I have no idea what that means, but it's fascinating. Archimedes was actually onto something. I mean, the bronze and the aluminum gave us the highest reflectivity of infrared light. But we still don't know whether infrared or visible light is more important at this distance, so I think we need to move this experiment to a bigger scale. I think you need to go outside and start running some tests.
I think that's a really good idea.
How's the Roman trireme coming along? Slowly.
I've been geeking out and reading too many books and totally forgetting about the experiment and just trying to actually make a Roman trireme, so I will go back. That'll be much easier.
They don't have to build an entire vessel, just a section of the hull.
We're ready to get our wood.
This was where the siege took place. Greeks hanging out right here, trying to keep Sicily, and these Roman battleships trying to come in and take it.
What was that about geeking out, Carrie?
We're building a Roman tree rim.
Okay.
I was wondering where you keep your wood from 200 BC.
Triremes were made from a type of European pine. Wouldn't you know it, these guys are fresh out.
Let me show you what we normally recommend for triremes.
The nearest match is spruce. Not perfect, but short of going to Italy, it'll have to do.
That doesn't seem too safe.
Somewhat frightening. People didn't like driving behind me, I'll tell you that.
At the same time, the Trireme team work on their best Adam and Jamie impressions.
We just need a piece of wood. We don't actually need to build this.
Well, Jamie, I don't know. I mean, you know, you gotta be accurate.
I think it's more accurate if we just use a piece of the correct wood. Yeah.
I'm gonna need to do 4 down low and 4 behind.
Tori goes off to help Adam, who's still trying to work out which material he should use for the death ray.
So we're gonna take a reading with the Mylar, and then you're gonna switch to the Plex, and we'll take a reading with that, and then you'll switch to the mirror, and then we're done.
Looks like he's lining up a class photo, but this class is failing one basic test, aiming their mirrors at the target.
Gather them in, come on.
Makes you wonder how 300 Greek soldiers with heavy shields managed it.
We're busting the myth that 8 people can coordinate the simplest of movements.
91.
What? Who's that?
One thing is certain,
Bronze over just a couple of feet is more efficient at transmitting thermal energy, but over 30 feet, glass is far more efficient because it's a much more focused beam. And the bronze is just as polished as you can make it. It's still somewhat diffuse.
but Adam, the ancient Greeks didn't have flawless glass mirrors, did they?
I kind of got it wrong, actually. They had access to making very polished mirrors by coating their bronze with silver and mercury and getting highly polished mirrors. So we're actually going with something very close to technology that was available to them. Jamie, you're not on the target.
Jamie thinks that, on reflection, his fellow Mythbuster is on the right track.
I think it's looking surprisingly good, actually. Even with a small test like this, we saw a significant increase in temperature right away. And we're going to be going dramatically up in numbers with the mirrors that we use on the real thing. I don't see any problem here. I think we're going to set something on fire. I'm looking forward to this because, you know, this is yet another common object, an everyday household object that's put to some kind of really destructive use, which is sort of fun somehow.
Gotta worry about that guy.
Good times.
Later, we'll see if Adam can turn a bunch of mirrors into a death ray.
Freaks!
Oh, I'm gonna be sick. I'm done with this.
Then just add tar. And finally,
We cover the raw wood with the beeswax to preserve it from the seawater.
hemp, tar, and wax. It's almost as if the Roman fleet chose the most flammable materials they could find.
That's gonna be cool.
And it's away, Rio, away, Rio.
Now, it just so happens that Mythbusters safety officer, Jim Rockwell, is a bit of an old salt. He loves a sea shanty.
Goodbye to Sally and goodbye to Sue, away, Rio.
And if things go according to plan, he might have to learn a couple of verses of Smoke on the Water.
There's not much on a boat that doesn't burn. In fact, fire is one of the biggest hazards at sea. And when you mix a light wood like pine or fir with wax and pitch and loosed up pieces of rope, unspun yarns of rope, it's just a tinderbox floating around.
So the trireme section is shipshape. Adam's chosen the type of mirrors he wants for his death ray. Now he has to work out how many he'll need and how best to arrange them to harness the sun's boat-burning potential.
All right, this right here represents a 1/12 scale model of the Archimedes death ray experiment we're going to actually do for real. Here's our miniature boat, and here's 13 Jamies focusing the sun's energy on a target. So we'll be able to aim all these guys up. So there are three methods that Archimedes could have used to actually focus sunlight and set fire to his enemies. The first and the simplest one is actually handing a mirror to every one of X number of soldiers on the shore. The problem with that is it takes a lot of soldiers to get a focused beam, to get something strong enough, and as we saw in our test with even 8 people, it's really hard to coordinate even that small number to focus their mirrors all at the same point. Gather them in, come on, hold it there, come on, people, what's going on here?
Focus! Attention deficit disorder club.
The second method is to have all the soldiers who are holding these mirrors actually point their mirrors at a secondary mirror, which then focuses on the source. The problem with this is, unless that mirror is curved, it sends out a scattering of beams, and you can see that up on the wall up here. There. You can see that it's not a focused beam, it's an array just like these guys. So that method's pretty much out.
Adam builds a miniature rig.
Did you know that Archimedes built the first disco ball?
And the result is quite illuminating.
The third approach, and the one we think that Archimedes was probably most likely to have stumbled upon, is holding all of the mirrors inside a common structure with a common focal point. Although this arrangement, which is called a Fresnel arrangement, wasn't invented for another 1,000 years, its concept would have been very clear to Archimedes. And that is that as each mirror gets farther away from center, its angle is increased, so it's still aiming at a common point. And in this way, you're actually able to get all of these mirrors, 61 of them, focused at one spot, and we're looking actually to make a whole bunch more mirrors than this. So I think this is the most likely arrangement we're going to go with. How many mirrors have we got so far?
About 250.
Those mirrors will be screwed to a frame measuring more than 400 square feet.
This is actually my depth gauge, so I can focus the mirror array from behind it. All the mirrors have a screw adjusting their angle, and this depth gauge tells me how far a given screw should be out for a given row.
The setup is big and time is short.
I need to start drawing these circles because I need to drill 300 holes.
Right. It's not like I'm sitting over here, goofing off. I'm just trying to get this thing right. I want to get this thing as tight as it possibly can. But I understand we only have, another day and a half to finish this, so.
Oh, no, we have 4 hours to finish this. We have tomorrow to install it.
So begins a Fresnel lens frenzy.
They've got paper on them so that we don't blind ourselves when we're trying to focus it, or burn down somebody's house or something like that.
Turn your wheels this way. I want it angled slightly.
It's D-Day for the Death Ray. Luckily, it's not overcast.
Dude, you think it's gonna work?
Oh, absolutely not.
All right, let's get it floated.
The trireme's being launched on its maiden voyage. Adam and Tori have to work out a way to float their boat. And soon, there's drama on the high seas.
We built half a boat, and it's not floating level because it's only half a boat. So now we're trying to get weight into the back of this thing so we can get it upright and actually see something that we can burn. I can't believe we didn't think of this. I mean, there's an entire crew full of idiots here, and me included.
At the same time, Adam's death ray has arrived in sections, ready for assembly.
These screws that I'm putting in are actually the aiming screws for all 300 of our mirrors. And once we get them in, we have a formula for what their position is, in or out, depending on the row and their position on the mirror. And then we'll get some fire. So, we got the mirrors down, frame's almost done. We're gonna bring the forklift around, lift this puppy up and see if we can't put our sad little boat out of its misery.
Not so fast, Adam. Jamie's arrived on the scene. And he's not happy with the waterlogged warship.
Adam's job of securing the boat sucks. Now I've got to fix it. And I don't think it'll be that big of a deal, but sort of a pain in the butt. The tide's coming in, we have no time, and this ain't a boat, it's sort of a pile of wood.
Jamie, you know, you're going to put a lot of load on the center of the barrel.
Yeah, you had your chance. Let the guy that actually knows a thing or two about ropes and boats do his work and to the ocean.
If our Phoenicians couldn't build a sufficient boat, it's not my fault, all right?
No, you were the one that dumped the bag of sand.
I'm backing off.
All right.
Skipper Jamie goes to work with a little help from his first mate, Christine.
I have a job for you.
But she's a bit of a landlubber.
No, I need you to stick your hand all the way under there and grab that rope.
I'm working. Wait. Oh!
Sorry about that, I couldn't help myself.
The trireme should now stay afloat long enough to test the death ray.
So, Jamie, some more old-timey stuff from the farm? You're going to go fishing with a bow and arrow?
Well, not exactly. The myth says that Archimedes focused the mirror to hit the boat, a bow shot away from the walls of Syracuse.
Realistically, Jamie, we've made this entire thing, and all the math is to aim about 60 feet away, so if you can, just try and not shoot much farther than 60 feet, okay?
All right.
All right, let's see what it does.
Okay. That was gone.
60 feet is the hot zone, the point at which the 300 reflected rays will converge.
60 feet, right there.
The mirror rig is exactly the kind of thing that Adam's good at. He really flew through this. It's a big, hard-to-build thing that he did in just, like, practically no time at all. I think it's actually quite brilliant.
Despite that, he doesn't think it'll work.
It's just so hard to imagine that something of this scale would actually set something on fire from, 60 feet away. I just don't know. I'm actually really excited to see whether this works or not, but my guess is that it won't.
The trickiest part of this challenge is raising the rig.
The worst case scenario here is that the whole thing is just going to collapse somewhere in the middle of us trying to lift it. And if that happens, it's going to be like Humpty Dumpty, all the king's men can't put it back together again.
Stop! We got it, Jamie! Oh, look at that! I can't help noticing that it's not on fire. 300 mirrors, it should be on fire.
That's a pretty bright light you got going there, buddy.
The Romans wouldn't know what hit them. Oh, bright light. Sail away.
Jamie dons a fire suit.
There he goes.
And bravely wades in to take a temperature reading.
What's the temperature, Jamie?
It's about 150.
150?
Give it a minute. 200 degrees.
Now, the highest temperature we seem to be reading on the boat right now is about 200 degrees. That's just about 400 degrees shy of ignition temperature.
Even so, the wax is melting.
Oh, I see wax dripping off.
As a boost, the team holds up sheets of mylar. The added rays bump up the temperature almost 100 degrees.
That's 280 degrees. 284, 287.
The tar begins to smolder, but still no flames. Something else is clear. For this to work, you'd want the enemy to stay very still in exactly the right spot.
Our death ray doesn't seem to be working. I'm standing right in it, and I'm not dead yet.
Despite Adam's best efforts, the beams just aren't concentrated enough. Instead of meeting at a single point, the 300 rays are scattered across the entire structure. The sun's energy is diffused.
I don't think we're going to get anything better than this. I mean, even if we moved the whole mirror, which I'm not sure would survive, and get into the sun, we're not going to get instant ignition on this. I think we should call it quits and go for the flaming arrows.
Oh, well, nice try, Adam.
Yeah!
Now, that's about 2,000 years bad luck right there. Not sure you'd want these guys defending against the invading hordes.
This is harder than it looks.
Molotov cocktail, anyone? The waterlogged trireme just won't burn. Not even gasoline can provide that elusive spark.
It's busted. I mean, from a purely practical standpoint, this myth is 100% busted. If you have enough mirrors that make an effective death ray, the rig that they're mounted to is going to be so big, we saw, that you can't move it or aim it effectively.
Yeah, Archimedes was a really smart guy, and like a lot of us, he knew that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. This is not a simple solution.
No, I mean, you could only use it at a certain time of day when it's most effective. It's difficult to aim. What, are you going to ask your enemy to please show up around noon?
Or what if it's raining?
If I was a Roman, I'd want to show up on a rainy day. Now, this is definitely, I really wanted this one to work. I wanted to see some fire, but the question wasn't whether we could do it. It's whether Archimedes did it, and I think we showed that he definitely didn't.